On a map, Greenland looks less like an asset and more like a burden. A vast landmass locked beneath ice for most of the year. Barely 50,000 people call it home. It's remote, brutally cold, and costs billions of dollars annually to support. So why does Denmark refuse to let it go? Why would a modern European nation hold so tightly to a territory many see as one of the last remnants of the colonial era? The answer isn't found on the surface of Greenland's endless ice sheet. It's hidden beneath it. Buried under miles of ice lies a treasure that could reshape the balance of power in the 21st century. Enormous mineral deposits, rare earth elements that major economies are racing to secure, and vast resources that many experts believe remain only partially explored. But minerals are only part of the story. As Arctic ice continues to retreat, new shipping routes are slowly emerging. Passages once sealed off by nature could soon become some of the world's most important trade corridors. Suddenly, a place that once seemed almost worthless is sitting at the center of a geopolitical chessboard. And that's only the beginning, because Greenland isn't just a frozen island. For Denmark, it's a key to maintaining global influence, a seat at some of the planet's most consequential strategic negotiations, and perhaps the gateway to one of the most valuable reserves of natural wealth the modern world has ever known. The real question is this: is Denmark protecting Greenland out of historical responsibility, or because it knows exactly what's waiting beneath the ice? Yet there's one reality that rarely gets mentioned when Greenland enters the conversation. The island doesn't truly sustain itself. Every year, billions of kroner flow from Copenhagen to this Arctic territory, helping fund schools, hospitals, infrastructure, and much of the public services Greenlanders rely on every day. At first glance, it looks like a massive financial burden, a decades-long expense with no obvious return. But Denmark doesn't see it that way. To Copenhagen, those billions aren't a cost. They're the price of keeping Greenland, a strategic investment that ensures the island remains part of the Kingdom of Denmark. And that creates an uncomfortable paradox. Greenland wants greater control over its future. Calls for more self-government continue to grow. Some even envision full independence one day. But the most difficult question remains unanswered. Could Greenland's economy stand on its own if Danish funding suddenly disappeared? Because political ambition is one thing. Running an independent nation in the middle of the Arctic is something else entirely. And that may be the invisible trap holding Greenland in place. A trap built not from force, but from annual subsidies worth billions. But if money is what keeps Greenland within Denmark's orbit today, what's emerging beneath the ice is what has the rest of the world paying attention. For centuries, nature kept Greenland sealed beneath a fortress of ice. Now, that fortress is beginning to crack. As global temperatures rise, regions once buried for generations are slowly being exposed. And with them come rare earth deposits, uranium, and other strategic resources that the green economy of the 21st century desperately needs. The ice isn't just melting. It's revealing one of the greatest resource opportunities on Earth. What worries the world's major powers isn't just the value of Greenland's resources. It's where they are. Because whoever controls Greenland holds influence over a critical piece of the future global technology supply chain. That's what makes Denmark the gatekeeper of an extraordinary treasure. A small Nordic nation suddenly finds itself with the power to influence who gains access to some of the world's most important strategic resources. And in international negotiations, power doesn't always come from population size or military strength. Sometimes, it comes from sitting on the key to a vault everyone wants to open. And Greenland may be that key. But minerals and Danish subsidies still aren't Greenland's most valuable cards. There's another reason. Quieter, more dangerous, and in the eyes of Western strategists, perhaps even more important than everything hidden beneath the ground. Location. Look at a map of the Arctic, and Greenland sits along one of the shortest routes connecting North America and Eurasia. During the Cold War, that made the island an irreplaceable military outpost. And although the world has changed dramatically since then, Greenland's strategic importance never disappeared. It simply evolved. Today, Greenland remains one of the Western Alliance's most important observation points. From here, early warning systems can detect threats emerging from the North long before they reach North America. In other words, Greenland functions as a giant sentinel standing watch over the Arctic. Always watching, always listening, always there. And that's why the United States can never afford to ignore it. But here's the fascinating part. Washington doesn't own Greenland. Denmark does. And that gives Copenhagen a unique kind of leverage. A country of just a few million people suddenly becomes an indispensable strategic partner in the security calculations of the world's leading superpower. Greenland allows Denmark to maintain a diplomatic weight that many much larger nations struggle to achieve. And as geopolitical competition returns to the Arctic, that value only grows. New shipping lanes are emerging. Military activity across the far north is accelerating. Submarines, warships, surveillance networks, and advanced defense systems are becoming increasingly central to the strategic plans of the world's major powers. Against that backdrop, Greenland is no longer a distant island at the edge of the map. It's an observation tower, a fortress, a strategic asset no nation would willingly give up. And yet, despite all its wealth, its military value, and its growing geopolitical importance, there is one question that still refuses to go away. What if Greenland decides it no longer wants to belong to anyone? And that's exactly why Greenland's independence story is far more complicated than political slogans make it seem. On paper, the path has existed for years. In 2009, Greenland gained expanded self-rule and a legal framework that allows the island to pursue independence in the future. It sounds straightforward, but reality is anything but. The legal mechanisms were designed in a way that makes separation from the Kingdom of Denmark far more complicated than a single referendum or a symbolic declaration. Every step raises difficult questions about the economy, defense, foreign relations, and control of natural resources. And the closer Greenland moves toward independence, the harder those questions become to answer. Meanwhile, Danish politicians rarely describe Greenland as a colony. Instead, they emphasize the idea of the community of the realm, a political partnership built on shared institutions, a shared history, and decades of interconnected governance. So this is no longer just a debate about sovereignty. It's a debate about identity, about the future, and about the true cost of freedom. Because Greenland has the right to leave. But having the right to leave is not the same as having the ability to leave. And the gap between those two realities has created the island's greatest paradox. A land that constantly speaks about independence, yet still struggles to imagine life without the very connection it hopes to escape. But if minerals are the prize, and military geography is the shield, then the real battle over Greenland revolves around something even bigger: the power to shape the future of the Arctic itself. For centuries, the Arctic Ocean was a natural fortress, protected by ice and largely inaccessible to global commerce. Now that fortress is beginning to disappear, and as it does, an entirely new race is underway. Shipping routes that were once blocked year-round are becoming increasingly viable. New corridors could dramatically shorten travel between Europe and Asia, cutting transit times, reducing fuel consumption, and saving billions in logistics costs. The implications are enormous. Trade routes that have dominated the global economy for decades may soon have to share their importance with new pathways running through the Arctic. And Greenland sits directly at the heart of that transformation. This is no longer the story of a remote island. It's the story of who will control the trade routes of the future, who will write the rules, and who will reap the greatest rewards as the Arctic emerges as the world's next economic frontier. That's why Denmark doesn't see Greenland as a burden. It sees Greenland as a ticket to one of the most consequential power games on Earth. Because of Greenland, Copenhagen is more than just another European capital. It has a voice in conversations that will shape the future of global trade, resource security, and Arctic geopolitics for decades to come. And as the ice continues to retreat, that voice may become louder than ever before. They're also an Arctic nation. At first glance, that sounds like a geographic label. In reality, it's a source of power. The power to sit at the table where nations decide the future of the far north. The power to participate in negotiations over resources, shipping lanes, security, and territorial claims that are becoming more sensitive with each passing year. In other words, Greenland gives Denmark a voice in a game far larger than its actual size would suggest. And that's exactly why giving up the island is almost unthinkable. Because if Greenland were to leave, Denmark wouldn't just lose territory. It would lose its status as an Arctic nation. It would lose direct influence over decisions shaping the region's future. It would lose leverage in one of the most important geopolitical frontiers of the 21st century. And Copenhagen understands that better than anyone. So while much of the world sees Greenland as a frozen land covered in ice, Denmark sees something entirely different. It sees wealth. It sees influence. It sees the future. And perhaps that's the real answer to the question we've been chasing since the beginning of this video. Why does Denmark hold on so tightly to Greenland? Because sometimes, the most valuable thing isn't what lies on the ground. It's the position you occupy when the rest of the world starts looking in your direction. And that is the Greenland paradox, a place that appears forgotten at the edge of the world, yet sits at the center of some of the largest power struggles on the planet. Beneath its ancient ice lies immense mineral wealth. Across its waters, new shipping routes are beginning to emerge. And all around it, global powers are quietly calculating their next move. That's why Greenland has never been just Greenland. It's money, it's influence, it's security, it's the future of the Arctic. And as the world continues to change, the silent contest surrounding this island may only be beginning. So the next time you glance at Greenland on a map, remember this. What looks like an isolated frozen wilderness may actually be one of the most valuable pieces of real estate on Earth. A place where geography, resources, and global ambition collide. A place whose future could help shape the future of the world itself. If you enjoy stories about geopolitics, hidden power, and the forces quietly reshaping our world, be sure to subscribe to Discover Channel. Every week, we'll uncover the secrets hidden behind maps, borders, and headlines. The stories that seem distant at first glance, but ultimately affect all of us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next exploration.